not meditating either. If you start meditating, you will ruin it on the first minute. So don't. Just completely letting go, as if you cannot do anything about it. Let go in that way. As if you were free falling from a cliff or something, falling in the sky, and if there's some tension or worry or some intention to get somewhere from that free fall, there's nothing you can do except be the free fall. And even though the analogy is might be scary, it's actually the opposite. Completely safe. It's very simple what the purpose of yoga is, what the purpose of Dharma is. We have us being confused, existentially confused beings due to our belief in a separate self, I or me. That's why we have two different types of energy bodies. It's like two different types of minds. We are confused and deluded because, part of our subtle body or mind has dirt in it, has some imprints, which is the belief in a separate self. But then we also have a different second type of mind, which is completely pure and clear and full of love, always. This is actually the case, that we have two different minds, two different energy bodies in our being, actively happening. Two different kinds of channels, nadis. The good news is that we are not stuck. We are not forced or destined to stay with those self-based beliefs, habits and reactions forever. Delusion can be seen through, and through seeing through, which is what Vipassana or Lakthong practice is. This dirt, these imprints are liberated. Anyway, in every one of us, there is this completely clear and pure and fresh being. Full of love. Abound with love. we might feel that because of the transmission that takes place, and in our home practice, we might feel that we kind of enter into this so-called wakeful nature or Buddha nature of ours, that we enter into it. But it's actually the opposite way, that when we recognize, when we experience with our body mind this wakeful, pure, fresh, loving core of ours that is in all cells, in our whole being, it's the deluded mind that drops off. And that's why this type of yoga or meditation is called non-meditation, because we don't go into meditative states or states of concentration. Rather, we recognize that pure, fresh, really fresh being in us. This being it's full of love, it's full of light, and also bliss. But this bliss is not drunkening, intoxicating bliss. It's very subtle bliss. Or very subtle joy. And it's always in us. Here already I've used really simple words, terms to point out this nature of ours, like fresh, clear, pure, full of love, full of light, full of bliss. And through those very simple secular terms, I've actually described two different Buddha bodies, two different enlightened bodies, called Dharmakaya and Sambhogakaya. The body of empty phenomena and the body of enjoyment or even pleasure. Body of even pleasure or enjoyment body. It's sort of like being struck by a lightning. But it doesn't hurt. The opposite. It heals, it feels good, it feels natural. There is nothing, well, there's something that tops it. There is nothing that can top it in samsara. I'm playing a little bit. This is a dangerous play that I'm playing now because I'm a tantric. Tantra means to use everything for recognition, meaning also, whatever enjoyments or pleasures we have in life, also whatever hardships we have in life. So I used those two fancy Sanskrit words, Dharmakaya, body of empty phenomena, and Sambhogakaya, body of enjoyment. And in traditional Dzogchen terminology, there are two different types of practice for these, Trekche and Tögal. I think that this weekend we will discuss both. And point out both. So I have a question for you. Now that you recognize your pure body, your pure mind, this Buddha mind that is awake and aware, that is fresh and clear, what happens to the body of confusion, mind of confusion, mind that thinks in terms of I, me, mine, and other? What happens to that samsaric mind? I'm asking you to check in your own experience. Perhaps you feel that this mind, it disappears or diminishes. Okay, that's good. Simply remain in the recognition of the Buddha within, untapping the potential. Every time when we recognize the Buddha within, it comes without, changes from potential to something that we actually see and experience and feel. And again, it's not a meditative state. It's a state of soberness, freshness. You could even say that it's sane, sanity. So, on the path of great perfection practice or Chokchen, Mahasandhi, this is the starting point. Recognizing our basic nature. So we don't start following the breath, we don't place our attention below the nose, we don't begin to stare a flame. No concentration practice. If you ask me, that's a sidetrack. I went through that sidetrack and I don't recommend it because there's a better way, going straight to the answer. If we practice shamatha meditation, concentration meditation, our questions will remain unanswered because shamatha is different than recognition of this basic nature. Recognizing in every cell of the body, with our whole being. Recognizing this pure being in us that doesn't change, where there is no fluctuation, no change. We recognize this basic nature that is full of love in the limbs of the body, all four limbs. In the belly and lower part of the body. In the heart, inside the chest. In the spine. In the neck, in the head, in the brain. Complete recognition with our whole being. Muscles, soft tissues, organs, bones, and bone marrow. There is also a beautiful sense of love in this basic nature of ours. Sweetness, like the best organic honey. Sweetness like that of a forest strawberries. We have lots of those in Finland. Recognize that sweetness. And that sweetness, I could also describe it as subtlety. Very subtle. Even more subtle than very subtle. Depending on our advancement in emptiness meditation, in other words, purification practice, our ability to sustain the recognition varies. So, in Pemako, we talk about these bhumis or grounds of stages of practice called bhumis. And it is simply the case that if there aren't that many bhumis open, one hasn't practiced, is still kind of a beginner, then it is, it is like brief glimpses that we get. even during a transmission. And then the ability to sustain increases the more bhumis we have open, or the more bhumis we have perfected. And also, if a practitioner is very advanced, let's say all bhumis open and 6 or more bhumis perfected, then it's easy to pick up those subtle pointers that I also give. But nevertheless, whether we are in the beginning, in the middle, or close to the end, the main practice is same. That of recognizing ourselves as Buddhas, whether it's brief glimpses or sustaining experience. Even a brief glimpse is very significant, because if I use an analogy of a dark room, when we stand in a dark room, we can't see anything what's in it. We can't see the walls or any stuff in it. We can't see ourselves in the room. But then if we use the light switch on, off, quickly, on, off, that makes a change. Briefly we see the room. Briefly we see our Buddha nature. It comes and goes quickly, but the good news is that we can renew it. What also happens every time with direct introduction, transmission, is that one subtle body it has some capacity depending again on our stage of purification. So when we connect with a transmission, and if we don't yet have that much of purification, then we will get tired quickly. And again, if we have done purification, perhaps to an advanced degree, then we don't get tired. We can stay with it. And also the getting tired, it's really common. It actually should happen. It happens for a reason, because our limits are met. So it simply then starts to make us drowsy and sleepy and tired. But there's a way to stretch that limit, and that is bodhicitta, remembering, showing existential care towards other beings. The thing is that from the point of view of Ati Yoga, or recognition of Buddha nature, there are no other beings who are either trapped in samsara, in confusion, or who are liberated. There is no notion of that. So that's why we say in absolute bodhicitta prayer that all beings are free already. But a simple and very effective way, like I mentioned, when tiredness comes due to those our meeting the limits of our capacity at present, we can kind of stretch or open the subtle body by practicing bodhicitta, by generating compassion and love and care towards all other beings, physical and non-physical. So let's do that together. Silently or aloud, you can say the relative bodhicitta prayer. May all beings be free. Few times. Just say it and let go of it. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. Say it like you mean it. May all beings be free. After 3, 4, 5 times, let go of it and just remain without doing anything. See what happens in your energy. May all beings be free of existential pain. May all beings be free of self-delusion. May all beings be happy and content and fully settled in the common basic nature of ours, basic nature of all beings. What can and does happen is that when we recognize our basic nature and stretch the limits, like we always do on these retreats, I really like to push it. What happens is that Momentarily, some fear can come up, or irritation, anxiety, sleepiness, also drowsiness, or lust, some memory that triggers something. Stay with it. Don't shoo it away. Don't try to solve it or make it disappear. Stay with it. That's a being that, those are the beings, or some of them, that we show compassion towards. Stay with whatever arises and be with it from this basic recognition. Being with it means making connection, not keeping distance or not wanting to keep distance. Let's say towards irritation that comes up, but staying together with it, like holding hands, making a connection. With awareness. Being present. And this will release that whatever arises, whatever knots, K-N-O-T, knots come up, whatever emotional states come up. Sooner or later we have to reintegrate all emotional states, confusions and traumas back into this basic nature of ours. So I started by talking about two different types of, it's not two different types of nadis, but it's channels, energy channels, but it's two different aspects in the same channel and channels. So sooner or later we have to reintegrate those dirty parts back into the parts that are ever clean and clear. And that happens like that, creating connection and being together, really being together, not just witnessing, but being together in a sober, clear-minded and compassionate manner with those emotional states. This is basic Vipassana Lakthong instruction, basic emptiness instruction. And that's what liberation in Buddhism means. Senses of self are released. Irritation loses that negative irritability that makes us contract, and it simply becomes dynamic energy. Same with anger, same with blind lust, like blind sex desire that makes you go blind. Same with everything. And of course, what purification means is that what perfection of Bhumis means is that we meet with everything that arises. And it's a demanding and demanding process that can last for an extended period of time until it's all done. But even a practice of few moments or few days with correct instruction will make a change in our mind that affects our everyday life because the perspective changes. Stay with your experience. Stay what with what I've pointed out. If you prefer to sit eyes closed or open, both are fine. Alternating is also fine. If you feel very sleepy, uh, you can try a couple of things. You can try standing up, or you can try aiming your eyes upwards, not downwards. If you feel sleepy, it will help with falling asleep, eyes down, but eyes up, and it will bring your energy up. If you feel sleepy. Something that is really essential to Buddha Dharma is that all beings have Buddha nature. No matter how miserable we feel about ourselves, we have Buddha nature. For the simple reason that we have that subtle body, aspects of the subtle channels that never gets dirtied, never gets stained. So please remember this. When you feel like crap, when you feel like shit, when you feel like everything is going to hell, remember that we all have Buddha nature. When we really feel miserable, or let's say struck by fear in a way that keeps us in that fear perhaps for days and days or months on end. I've experienced it myself. Remember that nevertheless there is this Buddha within, and that this fear or irritation or anxiety, panic attacks, traumas, it happens only because there is dirt stored in our subtle body. In that aspect of subtle channels that stores stuff. But we all have Buddha nature, and nobody can take it from us or give it to us, although it can be pointed out. And that's really good news. There are so many people out there who believe that they are no good. People who are really in bad shape because they have absorbed all kinds of harming beliefs about themselves. Or negative view about themselves. So what is really a great medicine is that when we recognize our true being, ourselves as purely, completely wakeful beings, is that it changes perspective and puts things in our psyche, in our mind, into perspective. Not only replacing, let's say, a sense of poor self-worth. Is that how you say it? Poor self-worth? Does it make sense? Bad self-esteem. You don't replace it with good self-esteem. You see through that bad self-esteem and it releases it. The bad self-esteem is released. And that's the real empowerment. That's the real knowledge about ourselves. That's the great medicine. Of course, we all have hardships in life in various forms. Maybe illness, maybe health problems, social problems, problems in relationships, maybe poor or bad relationships with parents, or men or women, companions. Maybe financial worries. There's all kinds of worries and problems in this realm. This being a samsaric realm, everybody gets something eventually. And that's why it's extremely fortunate to learn the Dharma, to receive pointing out, because that's the end stop for that existential pain and suffering that keeps going in our minds. That rumination. So even if we had, I've been married twice, so I know a bit what I'm talking about. I have 2 divorces behind me. So even if somebody like myself, we felt bad of fucking up 2 marriages through Buddha Dharma, or let's say, if we went bankrupt, our business went bankrupt, and we felt really bad about it. This recognition of that mind phenomena, that burden, seeing emptiness of self, of that, instant release. The history of doing mistakes or making mistakes, that doesn't go away, but the relationship completely different. Just a memory. If you need to, you can adjust or change your posture anytime. So you shouldn't try to, you shouldn't try to bear pain or physical discomfort. That is useless in my experience. I've also spent considerable chunk of time in physical pain while trying to focus my mind or meditate. No good as a method. There are better, more direct ways. And let's stretch the subtle body open again before taking a short break. May all beings be free. Let's chant it 3 times. Inhale. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. Again, observe what happens in your own body-mind, in your own energy. What do I mean by opening the subtle body again or stretching it open again? Okay, move your body, stretch. Stretch in the way that you feel like stretching. And we have only 2 hours this evening, so let's take 5-minute break and then continue. 5 minutes. All right, let's continue seamlessly. So, our Buddha nature has 3 basic qualities. The first one is cognizance, that it knows itself. Knowingness. The second one is aliveness, liveliness, that loving feel. And the third one is settledness, in the sense that it's immovable, cannot be pushed over. Or cannot be manipulated. So the second one, all these 3 qualities are together. These are just like 3 different perspectives or 3 different aspects to the same thing, that of our basic nature. See if the second one, I have my background is both in Hindu Tantra and Buddhist Tantra. And well, it's a whole different discussion and set of workshops to compare the two. But Hindu Tantra has more. Buddhism talks about compassion a lot. Compassion and kindness. Karuna and metta. But in Hindu Tantra, it's more described as subtle bliss, sahajananda. Sahajananda means spontaneous bliss, natural bliss. You might also speak of joyfulness, or that this basic nature has a pleasure. Do you say pleasureful quality to it?
You would say like pleasurable.
Pleasurable, yes, yes. I knew that. That's like second grade English, but what can you do? So recognize that. Knowing, knowingness means being present, present and clear, like being sober. It's a perfect analogy that, if we imagine that we were drunk a bit, kind of tipsy a bit, nicely drunk, but then something like an accident or something happens in front of our eyes and it shocks us out from that drunkenness. All of a sudden, you are in this very sober, very clear minded state. That kind of clarity, just without the shock. And also, I use the local train and I see people going to work and coming back from work, and they are just clouded by stuff and, gray cloud hovering around in their aura. Not sober, not fresh, not clear. Here you have to be fresh and clear. But not only that, but that there's this wonderful sweetness, richness, joyfulness. Recognize that in your own being. That there is love that is rich. It usually doesn't show, it doesn't come out from people. It is kept inside. Perhaps only with, one's companion when we are in love, or when we have children or pets that we love. Then it comes out, but it mostly stays hidden. I'm pointing it out so that it can come out. Buddhists talk about compassion, but I think that, compassion is good, but I think love has for us Westerners, it has a certain quality and feel. When we are in love and say to somebody honestly, sincerely that I love you, we are describing something that we feel, something that we experience. And this love we already have in us. And it doesn't need to stay hidden. when we recognize this love from the perspective of Ati Yoga, when we recognize love, that is rainbow body practice, Tagal. Complete experience, full of love, not just a small tiny flame, but really relaxing, surrendering, letting it come out. Whatever shields we may have, whatever shields we may hold up, see if you can trust this experience of love, of your own basic nature. Can it be trusted? Is it safe? You can check. For the sake of all sentient beings, for the sake of all sentient beings who suffer, who are in existential pain and confusion, and who therefore can't help harming themselves and others, for the sake of everyone. Feeling that love, recognizing that love, feeling and recognizing that joy, that subtle joyfulness, like joyful bubbling with our whole being, with our whole body, with our belly, with our heart, with our head. Recognizing it properly. So that it works for us. If it works for us, our doubts disappear. doubts and confusions disappear. Maybe not for good, but even a small relief, it's very beneficial and very welcome. When we recognize this, I would say I wouldn't use compassion here, nor I would use kindness, but I would use love. So there is something brilliant that happens when we recognize or cultivate this pure love as a practice. And that is that we become pink, in the sense that our aura becomes pink. There is pink light radiating from our hearts. In Tibetan yogas, there is this discussion about different types of so-called bindus or drops, which are the energies of different mind functions. So when we cultivate love in those Tibetan yogas, they try to bring the energy of the head and energy of the gut to the heart. When we cultivate, and these drops are white and red in color. So when they unite in heart, there is pink light radiating. But this happens automatically when we recognize this love aspect of our basic nature, or generate it through prayers, or perhaps through devotional singing. perhaps through devotional dancing. Same thing happens. And of course, like Valentine's Day is on Sunday. So on Valentine's Day we have pink hearts everywhere. So that's the color of love. Red, pink, reddish pink. There's a reason for that. Recognizing love of the basic state also does a lot of healing, because love has magnetism. It glues things together. It's a very comprehensive experience. When you feel love and recognize love, it's not a partial feeling. It's a very comprehensive. We all have been in love for the first time, perhaps as teenagers, and we know exactly how it feels. We know we can't see or hear or notice anything else except the person who we love. Because of this magnetism. Love is magnetic. Okay, let's continue to basic prayers, starting with Bodhisattva vows. I vow to liberate all sentient beings. I vow to end all self-based confusion. I vow to exercise the Dharma that frees. I vow to attain the great perfection. I vow to liberate all sentient beings. I vow to end all self-based confusion. I vow to exercise the Dharma that frees. I vow to attain the great perfection. I vow to liberate all sentient beings. I vow to end all base confusion. I vow to exercise the Dharma that frees. I vow to attain the great perfection. And then we continue with relative refuge, absolute refuge, relative bodhicitta, absolute bodhicitta, and dedication of merit. I take refuge in the Guru. I take refuge in his pure land. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I take refuge in the Guru. I take refuge in his pure land. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I take refuge in the Guru. I take refuge in his pure land. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Recognize the charge of each prayer. Experience, feel it with your body, with your heart, with your head. Never miss the charge. I am the Guru. I'm in the Pure Land. I am the Buddha. I am the Dharma. I am the Sangha. I am the Guru. I'm in the Pure Land. I am the Buddha. I am the Dharma. I am the Sangha. I am the Guru. I'm in the Pure Land. I am the Buddha. I am the Dharma. I am the Sangha. May all beings inhale. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. All beings. Inhale. All beings are free. All beings are free. All beings are free. And dedication. May all beings receive my accumulated merit. I dedicate the merit to the refuge and to all sentient beings. And joining hands. All right. We still have about 10 minutes left. Somebody has comments or questions, please feel free.
Yeah, you mentioned the colours of love, which was like a pinky red, and you said about one colour coming from the head and one colour coming from the stomach. So are these the white and the red? Which one is which?
Head is white, gut is red.
Ah, and they meet in the heart.
Yes, but I wasn't describing a practice that we did. That's how it's practiced in Tibetan yogas, in Tibetan Buddhism. It can be done that way, you know. I think it works, but I have, you know, I started my tantric journey with Shaiva Tantra from southern India. So that's why I was introduced to this love aspect in a very, very strong way, because it's based on loving devotion, loving surrender, called bhakti, 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 bhakti yoga. So at the time, I didn't know about bindus, you know, different essence energies of, you know, different mind functions, different, yeah, mind functions, you could say, different parts of the subtle body, you know, the essence energies that affect in different parts of the subtle body. I didn't know about it, but I knew the experience of it when, you know, when the head, you know, when the whole psyche becomes centered in the heart. And of course, you know, heart has a lot of emphasis in Buddhism, you know, because of compassion, But I was just meaning to say that I think this when love is recognized in the way that we did, that's the easiest way to get that job done, rather than taking this energy and visualizing it as this, and the other energy visualizing it is at that, and then focusing, visualizing, and performing a technique. That's my take on it.
Thank you.
How do you feel? Everybody feeling okay? Anybody want their money back? If you want, you can ask me. I will give it back. Always.
We'll let you know Sunday night.
What was that?
We'll let you know Sunday night.
So the pressure's on, Kim. You have to keep it going till Sunday night. This quality all the way to Sunday evening. Thank you.
I was wondering, during the winter retreat, when we did in Alta Yoga connecting with others, I started feeling like this pinkish.
Mm.
And then when it said it now, it was like it kind of clicked. So it was like very pink, very nice. And like feeling the aura, and I experimented a bit with it. So I was wondering, could you kind of like artificially do the crystal visualization and then kind of color it pink? And then you will kind of get into that feeling.
Definitely, yes. Yes, it's the same frequency.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can be done that way as well.
Yeah.
But the thing is that it has to be convincing, meaning that it has to be convincing in the sense that it has to create or translate to an experience.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
all visualizations need to do that. But this is something that is, quite often I think that's a problem in with different kinds of practitioners who do visualization or chant mantras, is that they don't realize, they are not told how to connect with the internal aspect. They just struggle with the external aspect. So, but you already know this. You've been around.
Thank you.
I remember in December 2006, I received my first empowerment to Kriya Yoga from Paramahamsa Pragyanananda, who's still around. He's not that old, maybe 60 now. And he had the custom when he was guiding sessions, he always, said the word love every now and then. Breathe in, let's say, like an example, that doing a breathing exercise where you move your attention in a certain manner, but he would say, okay, now breathing from the central channel up, love. Breathing, exhaling down, love. So he was like flavoring his guidance and flavoring the whole group that was doing the practice in that way, and it was very effective. I started doing it myself when I was practicing at home. I would say love every now and then, and it made big difference. And it made a difference because, when I had received the empowerment from him and practiced a few sessions with him until I went back home after the first weekend, because there was a transmission. So he transmitted what he experienced, and it ignited. I got an experience of that love as well as clarity of my own. So again, Tantra is, empowerments are the heart of Tantra. Empowerment transmissions.
Would you say, Kim, this love that you describe is unconditional?
Yes.
I mean, the only love I've experienced is based on conditions, like in a relationship, there's give and take. And when that sort of ceases, the love ceases.
Yeah, that's how it often is. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, Sean. But yes, it is unconditional. We don't need to deserve it because it's ours, it's us, it's in us, and can't be taken away. It can only go unrecognized. So it's not a question of deserving it or being fit for it, fit to receive it.
Yeah, Kim, you mentioned about low self-worth or bad self-worth and low self-esteem, and in order to get better self-esteem, we just have to see through the low self-esteem. I suppose I was under the impression that, to grow and develop positive self-esteem, we need to do esteemable acts, actions. We have to be better, and then the good feelings follow. But then I was questioning that through the guidance, because there's a lot of people who do good things, but they don't feel better, or it doesn't automatically bring good positive feelings. And then when you said, in order to transform low self-esteem, we just have to see through it, like Vipassana style. And transform it without necessarily doing anything else. Is that right? So, or is there a spirit of bodhicitta needs to be within that Vipassana or seeing through?
Well, the way how Buddha Dharma always works is, well, not always, because there are so many different kinds of Buddhisms. But if you ask me, and I would say if you ask most Buddhist teachers, they will say that, whatever issues or problems we have, we first and foremost, we need to see through those self-based issues and problems, because they all have their basis in the sense of meanness. You first have to see through that. Not only untie the knot, but see through the knot. K-N-O-T. So yes, it's sort of like if we have, did you say lack of self-worth? Was that the phrase you used? Is that the way how you say it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
low self-worth, yeah.
Yes. So if it can be compared like a physical analogy, if we have a fishing hook and this hook is on our shoulder, in our skin and it hurts, right? Oh, I just lost the track of my thoughts. Happens sometimes. Well, I lost the track of my thoughts. It doesn't happen as much as it used to, I realize. It was much worse last year. But nevertheless, whatever the issues are, there's always self involved. There's always me involved. So, because of that, vipassana is the do you say resolution? No, it solves it because the self is released. You're not necessarily working with, whatever reasons caused your lack of self-worth, by remembering what your daddy did when you were a kid, or what your schoolmates did, when they called you names for some time, that you don't necessarily work like that. You can use those as a trigger to really come aware of that lack of self-worth, but the main practice is to see and feel into that, to feel that self-based emotion, that feeling, that mind state, and surrender to it, and bring awareness in the middle of it. See what's in the middle of it. And when we bring awareness into a dark spot, a blind spot in our psyche, suddenly there's light in there because of this conscious awareness. And that makes the self evaporate, disappear. And this releases the energy back into the subtle circulation system, and we feel good and relieved. We feel natural again.
Thank you.
You probably heard me say this a dozen times by now. Explain this.
Yeah, but it's good to hear it again, and keep hearing it till I die.
Yeah.
But well, it's just a fresh context, and I hadn't heard the self-esteem situation
Yeah.
necessarily, in particular before.
Mm.
But it's good. Yeah.
One of my dreams is that I could teach in Finnish so that it would be translated by a professional translator into English, because my vocabulary obviously in Finnish is much wider than in English. Or alternatively, I would have to learn English much better.
Do you want to try a translator? Like get somebody in the Sangha to translate for you. Just like in the box next to you, just like repeating everything you say, all the guidance.
Yeah, but
That could be cute.
yeah. The thing is, the reason why I mentioned that is because, like you say, that I hadn't explained it in the context of self-esteem. I haven't, because my vocabulary is very limited, and when I'm giving instructions, I just don't, I might remember 2 or 3 definitions, 2 or 3 examples, but I would probably remember more in my native language.
Yeah, your English is impeccable. It's fine. That's just your low self-esteem.
No doubt. All right. Thank you for this evening. Let's continue tomorrow at 3 p.m. EET. Same link for all sessions. Same Zoom link, so you can use the same. Thank you so much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, everyone.